Apparently, when your dead mother-in-law leaves you a beach house, she's trying to tell you something. Like the fact that your husband has a whole second family. I always thought inheriting property would feel like winning the lottery, not discovering I'd been living in one. You know how in those crime shows they always say the killer was living a double life? Turns out my husband Bowen wasn't just living a double life. He was living a double tax bracket. The call came on a regular Tuesday morning while I was in the middle of my third Zoom meeting of the day. Working as a marketing director for a tech startup in Portland meant I spent half my life apologizing for my cat walking across the keyboard. The other half was spent wondering why my husband, a financial consultant, always seemed to disappear for weeks at a time for client meetings that somehow always coincided with school holidays. Mrs. Harlow? This is Bennett Crawford from Crawford and Associates law firm. I'm handling the estate of Delphine Harlow. She's left you a significant property in her will. I nearly choked on my overpriced cold brew. There must be some mistake. My mother-in-law died 5 years ago. Cancer. Very sad. My husband was devastated. There was an uncomfortable pause. Mrs. Harlow, I'm afraid Delphine Harlow passed away last week. Heart attack. The funeral was Saturday. That's weird. Last Saturday, Bowen told me he was at a financial planning conference in Seattle. I even got texts from him complaining about the mediocre hotel coffee and boring PowerPoint presentations. I'm confused, I said, which was the understatement of the century, like saying the Titanic had a slight navigation issue. Perhaps you should come to my office, Mrs. Harlow. There are some complications with the estate. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a leather chair that probably cost more than my car, staring at a silver-haired man who looked like he charged by the syllable. Delphine was quite specific in her instructions, Bennett said, sliding a thick manila envelope across his mahogany desk. She wanted you, not your husband, to inherit the Martha's Vineyard property. Her letter explains that Odessa deserves to know the truth and have a safe place when everything falls apart. Martha's Vineyard? As in the exclusive island off Massachusetts where presidents vacation and celebrities hide from paparazzi? We lived in Portland, Oregon. My husband had never mentioned owning property on the opposite coast. There must be a mistake, I said for the second time that day. My husband told me his mother died of cancer 5 years ago. We scattered her ashes in the Columbia River. Bennett's eyebrows crawled up his forehead like caterpillars trying to escape. Mrs. Harlow, I've been Delphine's attorney for 30 years. She was very much alive until last Thursday, and she was quite determined that you should have this property. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a key, a deed to a waterfront property on Martha's Vineyard, and a handwritten letter. The handwriting matched the birthday cards I'd received from Delphine before her death. Dear Odessa, it read, by the time you read this, I will finally be gone for real. I've lived with the shame of my silence for 5 years, watching my son deceive you while I pretended to be dead to half my family. The cancer diagnosis gave Bowen the perfect opportunity to kill me off in Portland while keeping me alive in Massachusetts. I was a coward who chose comfort over confrontation. But now that I'm truly dying, I cannot take this secret to my grave. The house is yours, not Bowen's, not Talia's. Use it however you see fit. You deserve to know the truth about the man you married. With regret and affection, Delphine. I looked up at Bennett, my vision blurry with tears that couldn't decide if they were from sadness, rage, or the hysterical comedy of it all. Who's Talia? I asked, though I already knew the answer would shatter my world. Mrs. Talia Harlow is your husband's other wife. They've been married for 5 years and have twin children, a boy and girl. They spend every holiday and summer at the Martha's Vineyard house. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It burst out of me like water from a broken dam. So while I've been working 60-hour weeks to help pay our mortgage in Portland, my husband has been playing happy family with wife number 2 in a beach house? That's innovative financial planning. Bennett looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Harlow? Which Mrs. Harlow? I interrupted. Apparently, there's a clearance sale on the name. Odessa, he amended. Delphine left you the house outright. It's worth approximately $3.2 million. That stopped my hysteria in its tracks. $3.2 million? And she left it to me? Not her son or his other family? Delphine was quite specific. She believed you were owed compensation. There's more. He handed me another document. This is the schedule for when Bowen, Talia, and the twins visit the property. They're expected for Thanksgiving next week. They don't know about Delphine's death yet, or about the change in ownership. I stared at the holiday calendar. There it was, in cheerful red ink. Nov, 24 to 28. Bowen, Talia, Stella, and Felix Thanksgiving visit. Stella and Felix. I had stepchildren I'd never met. Twins. Born within the same year, Bowen and I had started fertility treatments that mysteriously never worked. The doctor says my sperm count is too low, he'd told me, holding my hand while I cried over another negative pregnancy test. It's just not meant to be. Apparently his sperm worked just fine in New England. Does Talia know about me? I asked. Bennett shifted uncomfortably. I don't believe so. Delphine indicated that Bowen told Talia you were divorced before they met. So I wasn't just a wife. I was the secret first wife everyone thought was out of the picture. The plot of this Lifetime movie kept getting better. I tucked the documents into my purse and stood up. Thank you, Bennett. I think I need to see this house for myself. Of course. And may I say, you're taking this remarkably well. I smiled tightly. Oh, I haven't taken it yet. But I will. 24 hours and one cross-country flight later, I was standing on a private beach, keys in hand, staring at a gorgeous 3-story Cape Cod-style house with weathered gray shingles and a wraparound porch. The kind of place where rich families gather for lobster rolls and passive-aggressive comments about Cousin Bethany's third divorce. With shaking hands, I unlocked the front door and stepped into my inheritance. The entryway opened to a sun-drenched living room with vaulted ceilings, nautical decor, and a stone fireplace. And everywhere, were photos. My husband with a gorgeous redhead and 2 tow-headed children who had his dimpled chin and her bright blue eyes. On the mantel sat my husband's missing record collection that he claimed was lost in our last move. On the coffee table was a family photo album labeled Harlow Family Memories. Inside were 5 years of Christmases, birthdays, and beach days that I knew nothing about. The most recent photos were dated just 3 months ago, showing Bowen building sandcastles with the twins while Talia laughed beside them. August 2025. The same week he told me he was at a financial conference in Chicago. Well, look who's here early, a cheerful voice called from the doorway. I spun around to find an elderly man with a lobster red tan holding a casserole dish. You must be Odessa. Delphine talked about you all the time. Did she? I managed, my brain short-circuiting. Oh, sure. She always said Bowen should have been honest with you from the start. I'm Otto Lawson from next door, just bringing over my famous tuna casserole for the grieving family. Grieving, I repeated numbly. Such a shame about Delphine. The kids adore their grandma. They're so excited to finally meet their bonus mom at Thanksgiving. Delphine always said it was high time the truth came out. Bonus mom. I wasn't the wife. I was the bonus. When do Bowen and his family usually arrive for Thanksgiving? I asked, my mind already racing with possibilities. Oh, always Wednesday afternoon before the holiday. Tradition. Say, are you all right? You look a little pale. I smiled, feeling something cold and calculating slide into place behind my eyes. I'm wonderful, Otto. In fact, I think this Thanksgiving is going to be the most memorable one yet. I'm planning a very special surprise. When you discover your husband's secret second family, you have 2 options: fall apart or get even. I chose option 3. Document everything while planning the Thanksgiving dinner from hell. After Otto left with his tuna casserole, which I absolutely did not trust enough to eat, who brings seafood to a grieving family, I went full Nancy Drew on this Martha's Vineyard mystery. The house was basically a museum of my husband's parallel life, complete with family portraits placed at exactly the height where a 5'2" woman like me would need a stepladder to take them down. How thoughtful of my 6'1" husband. I opened a bottle of wine from the cellar, a $300 Cabernet that Bowen apparently kept for his special occasions here, while buying me $12 Merlot for our anniversaries in Portland, because it's really about the sentiment, not the price tag. Right. Nothing says romance like, I spent the good money on my other wife. With liquid courage flowing through my veins, I started photographing everything. The family portraits, the twins' growth charts marked on a kitchen doorframe, the anniversary cards signed Forever Yours Talia, with dates that overlapped perfectly with business trips Bowen had taken over the past 5 years. In Bowen's home office, I struck gold. A filing cabinet neatly labeled Harlow Family, Massachusetts contained tax returns, bank statements, and property records. Turns out my husband hadn't just committed bigamy. He'd been committing tax fraud, too. He'd been filing separate tax returns in Massachusetts, claiming his second family as dependents, while also claiming me as a dependent in Oregon. Financial consultant indeed, I muttered, photographing every document. More like financial criminal. The most interesting discovery was a joint checking account with both Bowen and Talia's names on it. The deposits into this account perfectly matched the business expense reimbursements that regularly disappeared from our joint account in Portland. My husband wasn't just a bigamist. He was using my hard-earned money to fund his picture-perfect family holidays. So I've been paying for their Christmas presents, I said aloud to the empty room. How festive of me. I continued my investigation upstairs, where I found the master bedroom decorated in coastal blue tones that Bowen had always vetoed in our Portland home because blue isn't restful. Apparently, it was plenty restful when sleeping next to Talia. The twins had adorable matching bedrooms, Stella's in purple and Felix's in green. Their nightstands held books inscribed, "To my favorite little readers, love Daddy," in Bowen's handwriting. The same Bowen who was too busy to attend my nephew's birthday parties because kids are exhausting. In the guest bathroom, I found 2 toothbrushes in the holder, one electric, Bowen's preferred type, and one manual with red bristles. In our bathroom at home, Bowen insisted on keeping his toothbrush in a separate holder because sharing holders is unsanitary. Apparently, hygiene standards varied by coast. By evening, I was sitting on the porch swing, surrounded by evidence of my husband's double life, when another neighbor approached. This time, it was a woman in her 60s wearing Lululemon and carrying a casserole dish. Martha's Vineyard apparently ran on casseroles and denial. "You must be Odessa," she called, climbing the steps. "I'm Vivian Pierce from across the street. I brought my signature sweet potato casserole. Delphine always said it was Bowen's favorite." "How thoughtful," I replied, wondering if I should start a casserole collection. "Did you know Delphine well?" "Oh, heavens, yes. Bridge club every Thursday for 20 years. She was so proud of her grandchildren, always showing off pictures and videos. She mentioned you often, you know." "Did she?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Vivian lowered her voice conspiratorially. She felt terrible about the whole situation. Said Bowen was making a huge mistake not coming clean to you. But you know how it is with sons. They can do no wrong in their mother's eyes, even when they're being complete idiots. Complete idiots seemed like a generous description for what Bowen was, but I nodded anyway. "Did Talia know about me?" I asked. Vivian's expression turned pitying. "Oh, honey, Talia thinks you're the villainous ex-wife who divorced Bowen and wanted nothing to do with him having children. According to neighborhood gossip, that's why they got together so quickly. She was his shoulder to cry on after his devastating divorce. So I wasn't just the secret first wife. I was the fictional evil ex who wouldn't give poor Bowen babies." The irony was almost poetic. "That must have been devastating for him," I said with a straight face, having to pretend his mother was dead while simultaneously using her as free childcare. Vivian's eyes widened. "Well, when you put it that way, Delphine did mention feeling like she was living in a soap opera. That's why she left you the house, you know. Said it was the least she could do after being complicit for so long." After Vivian left, I poured another glass of Bowen's expensive wine and called my best friend, Harper. "Remember when I said Bowen was acting suspicious?" I said when she answered. "The mysterious weekend conferences and the burner phone you found in his gym bag?" Harper asked. Turns out it wasn't an affair. It was a wife, a whole second wife, with twins. The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. "Harper? I'm trying to process the fact that the man who complained about your Target shopping habit has been maintaining an entire separate household on the opposite coast." Not just maintaining it, he bought his second wife a $3.2 million beach house in Martha's Vineyard while telling me we couldn't afford to renovate our bathroom. Please tell me you're divorcing him. Oh, I'm doing better than that, I said, feeling a smile spread across my face. I'm planning a Thanksgiving dinner where both wives will be present, along with some special guests from the IRS. Odessa Harlow, you diabolical genius. Actually, according to the Massachusetts tax returns, I'm Odessa Harlow and she's Talia Harlow. We're both Mrs. Harlow. It's like a weird sister-wife situation, except neither of us consented to it. After hanging up, I explored the kitchen and found Delphine's planning calendar. Every holiday was meticulously noted with who would be visiting, and for how long. And there it was, Thanksgiving weekend, with Bowen, Talia, and twins' arrival, 2 p.m. Wednesday, written in neat script. I had exactly 8 days to plan the most awkward family dinner in American history. My next call was to my cousin Iris, a forensic accountant for the IRS. Hey, favorite cousin, I said when she answered. What do you need? Iris asked suspiciously. You only call me your favorite cousin when you want something. How would you like to spend Thanksgiving catching a tax evader red-handed? I'll throw in oceanfront accommodation in Martha's Vineyard and front row seats to the public humiliation of my bigamist husband. I'm listening. By midnight, I had a plan forming. I'd need a lawyer, already had Bennett's number, an IRS agent, thanks, Iris, documentation, gathered and photographed, and the perfect Thanksgiving menu to serve my husband and his second family when they arrived, blissfully unaware that wife number 1 would be waiting. As I lay in Bowen's other marital bed that night, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. My husband hadn't just been leading a double life, he'd been leading a better one without me. The house in Martha's Vineyard was nicer than our Portland home. Talia's engagement ring, prominently displayed in photos, was bigger than mine. Even the coffee maker in this kitchen was the expensive model I'd been hinting at for Christmas. Joke's on you, Bowen, I whispered to the ceiling. Your mother left me the golden ticket to your downfall. And this Thanksgiving, I'll finally have something to be grateful for. Revenge served colder than leftover turkey. The week before Thanksgiving, I learned that planning revenge is a lot like planning a wedding. Expensive, time-consuming, and requiring far more spreadsheets than seems reasonable. The main difference? This time, I actually enjoyed the process. My first order of business was contacting a lawyer who specialized in bigamy cases, which is apparently an actual specialty, because humans are garbage fires in expensive suits. Bennett referred me to his colleague, Vivian Montgomery, who took one look at my evidence and actually slow-clapped. In 15 years of practice, I've never seen someone so thoroughly document their husband's double life in just 48 hours, she said, flipping through my meticulously organized file folders. Most clients come in with a suspicious text message and mascara stains. You've brought me tax fraud, bigamy, and what appears to be evidence that your husband used your joint funds to purchase property for his second family. I've always been detail-oriented, I shrugged. My performance reviews at work consistently praise my attention to detail and organizational skills. Turns out those traits are equally useful for documenting marital fraud as they are for marketing campaigns. You're handling this remarkably well, Vivian noted, studying me over her horn-rimmed glasses. What can I say? Nothing brings clarity like discovering your entire marriage has been a bad episode of Sister Wives, except without the sister wives knowing about each other, or consenting to the arrangement. So actually, nothing like Sister Wives, more like Criminal Minds. While Vivian prepared the legal paperwork, my cousin Iris was having a field day with Bowen's creative accounting. She arrived in Martha's Vineyard 2 days after my call, suitcase in one hand and government-issued laptop in the other. This is not just run-of-the-mill tax evasion, she explained, surrounded by spreadsheets on Delphine's dining room table. Your husband has been systematically defrauding both Massachusetts and Oregon state tax authorities, as well as the federal government. He's claimed different primary residences, different dependents, and different deductions in each state. So he's not just a terrible husband, he's a terrible citizen, I said, refilling our coffee cups with the fancy coffee maker that should have been mine. The best part? He used your joint bank account in Portland to funnel money to his Massachusetts family. but he reported that money as business expenses on your joint Oregon tax returns. So technically, you've been subsidizing his second family while getting a tax deduction for it. How thoughtful of him to at least get me a tax break while betraying our entire marriage. The more we dug, the more we discovered. Bowen hadn't just been maintaining two families. He'd been playing financial shell games that would make Bernie Madoff slow clap in his prison cell. But the real bombshell dropped 3 days before Thanksgiving, when I was going through Delphine's personal papers in her study. Hidden in a false bottom of her desk drawer, apparently deception runs in the family, was a third set of documents for a condo in Miami Beach. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, flipping through property records, utility bills, and school registration forms. It's not just a double life, it's a triple life. According to these papers, Bowen also maintained a relationship with a woman named Ramona in Florida, with whom he had a 3-year-old son named Leo. Based on the timeline, this relationship overlapped with both his marriage to me and his marriage to Talia. I called Iris into the study. "How many families can one mediocre white man support?" I asked, handing her the Miami documents. Iris whistled. "Apparently 3, if you're creative enough with tax fraud. And if you have a wife in Portland who makes good money that you can siphon off." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just funding his Martha's Vineyard family. I was funding his entire harem of unsuspecting women across the country. Every promotion I'd earned, every raise I'd negotiated, every bonus I'd received, all of it had been supporting Bowen's cross-country polygamy tour. "This changes the plan," I said, feeling a cold clarity settle over me. "We need to find this Ramona person before Thanksgiving." "You want to invite her to dinner too?" "That table's getting crowded," Iris remarked. "No, I want to warn her. She deserves to know what's happening before Bowen gets arrested for tax fraud and bigamy. She has a toddler, for God's sake." While I'd started this week wanting revenge, I now found myself in an unexpected sisterhood with the other women Bowen had deceived. Talia, with her perfect beach house and designer clothes, had initially been the villain in my mind, the other woman who stole my husband. But now I realized she was just another victim in Bowen's elaborate con. With Iris's help, I located Ramona Santiago, a pediatric surgeon in Miami. Unlike me, marketing director, and Talia, yoga studio owner, according to social media, Ramona was the real breadwinner. Her prestigious position at a top Miami hospital likely provided even more funds for Bowen to misappropriate. After a day of deliberation, I called her. "Dr. Santiago? My name is Odessa Harlow. You don't know me, but we have something significant in common. We're both married to the same man, Bowen Harlow." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "I have reason to believe Bowen has been committing tax fraud using our incomes to support multiple families across the country," I continued. "I'm in Martha's Vineyard right now, where I discovered his second wife and their twins. And then I found documentation of his relationship with you and your son in Miami." "This is some kind of joke," Ramona finally said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "I wish it were, but I have documentation, tax returns, property records, bank statements. Bowen told me his mother died 5 years ago. He told his Martha's Vineyard wife that I was his villainous ex who refused to have children. I can only imagine what he told you." "That he was a widower," Ramona said quietly. "His wife died of cancer before we met. He said he wasn't ready for remarriage because the loss was too painful, but he wanted us to build a life together anyway." Of course. In Bowen's twisted narrative, I was conveniently dead in Miami, divorced in Massachusetts, and actually married in Oregon. The man deserved an Olympic medal in mental gymnastics. "I'm planning to confront him at Thanksgiving with legal representation present," I explained. "I thought you should know before everything explodes publicly." Another long pause. "When and where?" Ramona finally asked. And that's how our Thanksgiving guest list grew to include not just one betrayed wife, but 2, plus an IRS investigator, 2 lawyers, and eventually, local law enforcement. With Ramona on board, our strategy evolved. She couldn't make it to Martha's Vineyard for Thanksgiving due to her hospital schedule, but she provided additional documentation that completed our picture of Bowen's elaborate fraud. The pieces were falling into place. I hired a local catering company to prepare a traditional Thanksgiving feast, No way was I cooking for this circus, and set up hidden cameras throughout the house to capture Bowen's reaction when he walked in expecting his Martha's Vineyard family and instead found his Portland wife waiting. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I got my hair done, bought a new outfit, and practiced my surprised to see you face in the mirror. The outfit was important. I chose a sophisticated blue dress that matched the decor of the beach house perfectly, as if I belonged there. Which, legally, I now did. You know, most people just serve dry turkey as their Thanksgiving revenge, Iris commented, watching me prepare. Well, I've never been most people, I replied, applying my lipstick with surgical precision. Besides, dry turkey is a crime against poultry. Tax fraud and bigamy are crimes against the federal government. I know which one I'd rather be guilty of. The night before Thanksgiving, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. For years, I'd worked myself to exhaustion to support what I thought was our future together, only to discover I was bankrolling Bowen's elaborate deception. Tomorrow, the man who thought he was clever enough to juggle 3 families would learn that he'd underestimated the wrong woman. As I lay in what was technically now my beach house bedroom, I scrolled through the family photos I'd found. The smiling faces of twins who had no idea their family structure was built on fraud. The beaming face of Talia, who thought she had a devoted husband instead of a con artist. The proud smile of Delphine, who had enabled her son's deception until her conscience finally caught up with her. "Thank you, Delphine," I whispered to the empty room. "Your final gift wasn't just this house. It was the truth." Thanksgiving Day dawned bright and clear, as if Mother Nature herself had ordered perfect weather for the dramatic showdown about to unfold in Martha's Vineyard. I woke up at 6 a.m., not from an alarm but from pure, unfiltered anticipation. Christmas morning for vindictive adults. The catering team arrived at 10 a.m., setting up a traditional feast that could feed a small army, or one very surprised bigamist and his entourage of unsuspecting victims. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, 3 types of pie. The works. If Bowen was going to have his life implode, at least he'd do it on a full stomach. "The table looks amazing," I told the head caterer, admiring the autumn-themed centerpiece and fine china, which, according to the prenup I'd found in Delphine's files, was a family heirloom meant to stay with the house. "Just to confirm," the caterer asked, "we're serving at 3 p.m., correct? For how many guests?" "That's right." "And honestly, I've lost count," I replied. "Let's just say it'll be a full house of people who didn't expect to be dining together." By noon, my team had assembled. Iris was setting up her laptop in the study, while Vivian arranged legal documents in the living room. Bennett arrived with a notary and a court order, authorizing the freezing of Bowen's assets once evidence of financial fraud was formally presented. 2 local police officers waited discreetly in unmarked cars down the street, ready to respond when called. "You look surprisingly calm," Vivian noted as I arranged name cards at the dining table. "I had my breakdown on Tuesday," I explained, carefully placing Talia Harlow directly across from Odessa Harlow. Screamed into a pillow for about 20 minutes, threw a few of Bowen's precious vinyl records into the ocean, then pulled myself together. Today isn't about emotions. It's about execution. At 1:45 p.m., Otto from next door texted me, "Black Range Rover just turned onto the street. License plate matches the one you asked about. Showtime." I positioned myself in Delphine's favorite armchair, facing the front door, legs crossed casually as if I belonged there. Which, legally, I now did. I wore the blue dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion, my hair styled in loose waves, a glass of Bowen's expensive Cabernet in my hand. The hidden cameras were recording. The legal team was in position, out of sight, but ready. At precisely 2:03 p.m., I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway, followed by car doors slamming and excited children's voices. "Grandma, we're here!" a high-pitched voice called out. Keys jingled in the lock. The door swung open. In walked my husband of 8 years, carrying a suitcase in each hand. Behind him trailed a stunning redhead herding 2 tow-headed children who were the spitting image of Bowen. It took exactly 3 seconds for Bowen's face to transition from holiday cheer to abject terror. "Oh, Odessa?" he stammered, suitcases thudding to the floor. What are you doing here? I smiled serenely and raised my wine glass in a mock toast. Happy Thanksgiving, honey. Surprise. Talia stepped forward, confusion written across her perfect features. Bowen, what's going on? Who is this woman? Yes, Bowen, I echoed. Why don't you introduce us properly? I've been dying to meet your Massachusetts family. The twins peeked out from behind their mother's legs, eyes wide with confusion. Stella, I recognized her from the photos, spoke first. Daddy, who's that lady in Grandma's chair? Bowen's face had drained of all color. He looked like a man watching his entire life crumble before his eyes, which, to be fair, was exactly what was happening. Talia, kids, why don't you go check out the beach? He suggested weakly. I need to talk to an old friend. Oh no, I said, standing up. Please stay, Talia. This concerns you too. I'm Odessa Harlow, Bowen's current wife of 8 years. Not his ex-wife, as I suspect he told you. Currently married, as in still legally bound in matrimony, just like you apparently are. Talia's face contorted in confusion, then shock, then fury. What is she talking about, Bowen? You said you were divorced. Now would be a good time to mention that Delphine left this house to me in her will, I continued pleasantly. So technically, you're all standing in my foyer right now. That's impossible, Bowen finally managed. My mother died 5 years ago. Did she? That's fascinating, because she very much died last Thursday. Heart attack. I have the death certificate if you'd like to see it. Also her will, naming me as the sole inheritor of this property. Oh, and Bennett Crawford is in the kitchen if you want to verify. He says hello, by the way. On cue, Bennett stepped into the living room, nodding solemnly at Bowen. Mr. Harlow, my condolences on your recent loss. Again. Talia had backed against the wall, clutching her children's shoulders. Bowen, what is happening? You said your mother died of cancer years ago. You said this woman, she pointed at me, divorced you because she didn't want children. Oh, I wanted children, I clarified. We did fertility treatments for years. Apparently, Bowen's low sperm count was only a problem on the West Coast. Seems like his swimmers worked just fine in New England. That's when the doorbell rang. Perfect timing, I said, crossing to answer it. That'll be the IRS. Iris walked in, badge displayed prominently, followed by Vivian with her briefcase of legal documents. The look on Bowen's face was worth every penny of the cross-country flight. Mr. Harlow, Iris began formally, I'm Agent Iris Jensen with the Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigation Division. We have evidence suggesting you've committed multiple counts of tax fraud across 3 states. I'm here to formally question you regarding these allegations. 3 states? Talia echoed. What is she talking about, Bowen? Should we tell her about Ramona and little Leo in Miami? I asked sweetly. Or would you prefer to handle that part of the conversation? Bowen lunged toward the door, but Vivian smoothly stepped in his path. I wouldn't recommend leaving, Mr. Harlow. There are officers outside, and fleeing would only add charges. Besides, we're just getting to the good part, the part where we discuss how you've been using your wives' incomes to fund your cross-country lifestyle. The next hour unfolded like the season finale of a particularly twisted reality show. Talia learned that her beautiful life had been partially funded by my marketing director salary. I learned that Bowen had been claiming different primary residences in each state to minimize his tax burden. We both learned that our husband had a 3rd family in Florida. The twins were ushered into the kitchen by the catering staff, who distracted them with pumpkin cookies, while the adults' world imploded in the living room. So let me get this straight, Talia said, voice shaking with rage. Your mother wasn't dead. I'm not your only wife, and this house isn't even yours? And apparently neither is the vacation condo in Vail, I added, referencing another property document we'd discovered. Though we're still trying to figure out who Justine is, and whether she thinks she's married to you too. Bowen slumped onto the sofa, head in his hands. This isn't how it looks. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Because it looks like you've been committing bigamy, tax fraud, and wire fraud across multiple states while gaslighting at least 3 women into thinking they were in exclusive relationships with you. Please, enlighten us as to how it actually is. He had no answer. By the time 3 p.m. rolled around, The police had been called, statements had been taken, and Bowen had been formally served with divorce papers from both me and Talia, who, it turned out, was a former paralegal before opening her yoga studio and therefore processed legal betrayal remarkably efficiently. The twins were told a sanitized version of events, that Daddy had made some bad choices and would need to talk to some police officers. They were remarkably resilient, more concerned about whether there would still be Thanksgiving dinner than about their father's impending legal troubles. "Of course there will be dinner," I assured them. "I ordered way too much food, and it would be a shame to waste it." And that's how I ended up having Thanksgiving dinner with my husband's other wife and their children, while Bowen was escorted to the local police station for preliminary questioning about his creative financial arrangements. "To new beginnings," Talia said, raising her glass across the table after the children had been excused to watch a movie in the den. "And to Delphine," I added, who, in the end, did the right thing. We clinked glasses, two women united by betrayal and expensive Cabernet, watching the sunset over the Atlantic from a house that was now legally mine. "So," Talia asked, cutting herself another slice of pumpkin pie, "what exactly are you planning to do with this place?" 6 months after the Thanksgiving showdown, I found myself sitting on the wraparound porch of my Martha's Vineyard beach house. Yes, my beach house, watching the sunset paint the Atlantic in shades of pink and gold. A glass of wine in one hand, divorce decree in the other, feeling like I'd graduated from the world's most expensive masterclass in trust issues. Life takes unexpected turns. One minute you're working overtime to afford a bathroom renovation in Portland, and the next, you're the owner of oceanfront property on an island where presidents vacation. All it takes is discovering your husband has been auditioning for America's most talented bigamist. The legal aftermath of Bowen's deception unfolded like a particularly juicy Netflix documentary series. The federal charges for tax fraud alone carried a potential sentence of 5 years. Add wire fraud, bigamy, still illegal in Massachusetts, who knew, and misappropriation of funds, and Bowen was facing enough prison time to qualify for a senior discount by the time he got out. His defense strategy was almost impressively delusional. "I never meant to hurt anyone." As if accidentally tripping and falling into multiple marriages across state lines was a common workplace hazard. "Oops, I slipped on a wet floor and somehow signed 3 marriage certificates and 5 tax returns." The most darkly hilarious moment came during the asset discovery phase, when investigators uncovered not just the Miami family and the Vail condo, belonging to a girlfriend named Justine who, thankfully, he hadn't married, but also a timeshare in Scottsdale and a boat docked in Seattle. My husband wasn't just living a double or triple life. He had established an entire geographic franchise operation of deception. Did he have a frequent flyer spreadsheet to keep track of all this? My therapist asked during one of our sessions. "Actually, yes," I replied. "Color-coded by family, with alerts to remind him of birthdays and anniversaries. The man may be morally bankrupt, but his organizational skills were impeccable." In an unexpected twist of female solidarity, Talia, Ramona, and I formed a support group of sorts. Monthly Zoom calls became our ritual, 3 women united by the same terrible taste in men, comparing notes on divorce proceedings and co-parenting arrangements. We called ourselves the First Wives Club, even though technically I was the only first wife. The irony was not lost on any of us. Talia, with her yoga studio now expanded to 3 locations, took the twins back to her hometown in Connecticut. "I want them to grow up around people who don't think having multiple families is a creative lifestyle choice," she explained. Ramona continued her successful career as a pediatric surgeon in Miami, where little Leo was now thriving in preschool. "I tell my patients' parents to trust their instincts," she told us during one Zoom call. Maybe I should have taken my own advice when Bowen kept disappearing for consulting jobs that never seemed to have paperwork. As for me, I sold our Portland house, quit my corporate job, and launched my own marketing consultancy, specializing in reputation management, ironically enough. Nothing teaches you about brand authenticity quite like discovering your entire marriage was fiction. The Martha's Vineyard property became my primary residence, though I rented it out during peak tourist season for an obscene amount of money. Nothing soothes the sting of betrayal quite like charging $15,000 a week for vacationing CEOs to enjoy the ocean views your bigamist husband once thought were his birthright. Delphine's final gift wasn't just the real estate. It was the freedom that came with it. Financial security meant I could rebuild my life on my terms, without the pressure of supporting a man who had been systematically bleeding my bank account to fund his cross-country deceptions. The neighbors, after getting over their initial shock, became unlikely allies. Otto still brings me tuna casserole on Tuesdays. Vivian keeps me updated on island gossip during our weekly bridge games, a skill I learned specifically because Delphine had loved it so much. In a strange way, I inherited not just her house but her community too. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if Bowen ever truly loved any of us, or if we were all just convenient covers for a man addicted to duplicity. Then I remember the look on his face when he walked into the house that Thanksgiving day and realized his carefully constructed house of cards had collapsed. That wasn't the face of a man losing his love. It was the face of a man losing his leverage. They say living well is the best revenge, but I disagree. The best revenge is living authentically after someone has forced you to participate in a lie. Every morning I wake up in this beautiful house, I remind myself that truth has a way of surfacing, even when buried under years of deception. Last week, I received a letter from Bowen's prison address. I recognized his handwriting immediately, the same script that had signed anniversary cards declaring his eternal devotion, while he was simultaneously pledging it to at least 2 other women. I placed it unopened on Delphine's antique desk, next to the family photos I'd kept, not of Bowen, but of the twins and Leo, innocent bystanders in their father's elaborate fraud. Those children are the only true legacy worth salvaging from this wreckage. Talia and Ramona have agreed to occasional visits, building a different kind of family unit, one based on honesty and resilience, rather than deception. As for the letter, it remains unopened. Some narratives don't deserve continuation. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across my porch, my house, my life, reclaimed from the man who thought I wouldn't be smart enough, brave enough, or angry enough to unravel his lies. Turns out, hell hath no fury like a woman with access to tax records and a really good forensic accountant cousin.